What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And this one I want to break down what's going on with NIO stock, what you should be watching for moving forward. I'm also going to give you guys my price predictions for NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the QQQ, and break down what these charts are suggesting for us. But before I break anything down about the bullish news that came out for NIO, what's going on with the share price, and what you should be watching for, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in just 3 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at NIO is down 2.64% for the day on Friday, once again continuing to drop. But despite the drop, if you look at NIO's chart, right here we made there's a low that was made right here in the 13.8 area. Then we made a lower low around this 13.2 area, then another lower low at 12.55. So 3 lower lows were made on NIO. And if you look at the chart, the MACD has been making higher lows. The MACD is curling upwards, forming a bullish divergence. So the MACD has a triple bullish divergence developing, and the RSI actually has a double bullish divergence. Not a triple, but a double on the RSI. So why on the RSI? Because it was very oversold with an RSI of about 16 when NIO was around this 13.2 area. NIO goes all the way down to 12.5, but the RSI makes a higher low, right? The low used to be at 16, then it went up, to about 24. So the RSI is making higher lows, MACD is making higher lows, price is making lower lows on NIO, forming a positive divergence, which tells me that there should be a bounce coming relatively soon, most likely. Now, what else is interesting is if you look at SPY's charts, the same thing has been developing. We actually have a quadruple or a triple bullish divergence, not a quadruple, a triple. On the MACD, you could see this thing's trending upwards while the price has been trending lower. Same thing with the RSI. RSI has been making higher highs while the price has been making lower lows. And this tells me that there's a good chance we might see a bounce on SPY, but it really depends on if we could get enough buyers around that 444 level. Same thing with all these other stocks out there. But looking at NIO, we have this news that came out right here. Motivated, by greater sense of urgency, Deutsche Bank has raised its estimate on NIO ahead of the Q2 earnings. So that's some good news for NIO. They're now raising the price target to about $17 from 13. And they're one of the first banks that came out and they're giving NIO a buy rating, saying buy NIO down here. It's a good buy. It has strong fundamentals. And they're saying this because even though deliveries were not that strong for the second quarter, they are quite confident that NIO's overall earnings, their guidance should be relatively strong. And they think that because of strong guidance, this could help them continue to push. They also mentioned that there's going to be a big improvement. You can see the margins are going to improve in the third quarter, reaching double digits. And they believe that in the fourth quarter, they should exceed 15%. They also said that they're going to see a big increase of about by 10,000 units for 2023. It's about 180,000. That's a plus 47% year over year. So they're bullish on NIO, right? They did mention that there could be some supply chain limitations, but they're still excited about the company. They're still very, very optimistic and they're still very bullish. So that's a good sign for them. Now, as far as the economic data goes, we do have some consumer inflationary expectations coming out 1.5 hours after the market opens. And then in terms of earnings, we have like Jinko, the Home Depot going on for Tuesday, Target, Walmart, lots of retail for the week, but nothing too crazy. To add on to this, let me just mention that the volume on NIO has been about like 54 million, a little bit lower than average, so it's not really dropping on high volume. There's not insane selling. And once again, Deutsche Bank is giving NIO a buy rating. NIO, the price-price ratio for it has dropped quite a bit, but it's trying to bounce here. And finally, looking at the daily seasonality, Mondays tend to be a little bit weaker than Tuesdays, but Tuesdays and Wednesdays tend to be a lot stronger for NIO. So I'm going to be watching that very carefully. And finally, the short interest has been declining, which is a good sign for NIO. It's not as heavily shorted as before. So what do I see for the charts? Basically, if you zoom out on SPY, for example, I made a video about this earlier about how we had this confluence of support from the previous high right here acting as support. This is what's resistance acting as support. We had this trend line, which is the previous support line, which acts as support. And then we had support from the wedge. So could the market continue to sink? It could. If we get another bad piece of news, I'm always open to that possibility. So far, I don't see a major catalyst to cause SPY to sink much harder. And so far, it's getting bought up around this 444 area. So there are buyers stepping in. And looking at the current trend with the triple bullish divergence, I think the odds favor, okay? I'm open to any possibility depending on the news, but I think the odds favor SPY bouncing, maybe retesting 444 and then trying to get a bounce and then trying to make its way up to about 448. I think that's very probable, and that's what I think is going to happen over the next 2 days. It coming down to 444, seeing some buyers again shopping a bit, then getting a push up to 448. I think that's very, very likely. That's what I am predicting. I think for Tesla, the same thing or something very similar is going to happen. Tesla's going to come down, retest 240. Now, it also depends on the news for Tesla because sometimes it could be a little different. If 238 breaks on Tesla, we could see like 235 before it bounces, or it might just try to base around 240. It could be either one of those. Uh, I think it's going to either retest 240 then bounce, or come down to like 238 slash 235 and then bounce. One of those two should be key. And then once it bounces, it's going to push all the way back up to about 250, in my opinion, in the later days of this week. I'm leaning towards either a little bit more dropping before a bounce, or it could just like bounce from here. And I think it's very probable for Tesla. For the triple Q, I think it's going to try to base around 365 before this thing tries to bounce. I think that's very probable as well with the triple bullish divergence developing on it. I think it might have a quadruple. It technically has a quadruple bullish divergence, actually, which is pretty crazy. But we're just going to focus on the triple one. Still, it's like a triple bullish divergence, still nice. So, in my opinion, I think there's a good chance that the triple Q is going to try to retest 365 base around there and try to balance and push its way up to 368 and then 370. I find that very probable. And then for NIO in particular, it depends on the news because, like I said in my earlier videos, I think I have a chart drawn out here for NIO in particular. But basically, when looking at NIO, this thing, just like SPY and many others, it has a bullish falling wedge developing on it. So it's eventually going to break out. Once the breakout comes, we're going to see this thing make an attempt to get back up to $14. Deutsche Bank gave NIO a buy rating, so that's a good catalyst that could help NIO. And this looks like it could be from like an inverse head and shoulders. So it really depends on if NIO could get a break out of that wedge. I think there's a good chance it's going to happen soon. So if you're bearish, I mean, if it breaks below 12.5 because of some bad news, then it could sink a little lower. That is a possibility. But my gut tells me the most probable outcome is going to be it comes down a little bit, retests like 12.75, but it's going to try to base around this 12.7 to 12.5 area. Then it's going to get a nice bounce either by the end of Monday, if not by Tuesday, a nice bounce for NIO. I think it's going to make its way back up to this imbalance right here around 13.24. And if that breaks, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a retest of about almost 14, a little bit under 14, around like 13.7 to 13.8, all the way up there. I think that's very probable. I think it could be forming like an inverse head and shoulders like structure. So I'm going to be looking for a bounce on NIO, and I find that very, very probable going into tomorrow slash Tuesday. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing from a technical standpoint. I think it should bounce very soon, and we will see what happens tomorrow. So please watch your technicals very carefully. If like hypothetically something else were to happen, all you want to do is watch this wedge, see if you could get some kind of breakout. My gut tells me it's going to come soon. So watch this wedge carefully on NIO. I think it's going to try to bounce, and we will see how this thing moves. Anyways, have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the weekend. NIO to the moon as the long term is very bright alongside the whole market, and peace out.